In today's video, we're checking out the brand new Matribox II Pro from the folks over at Sonicake. This is a brand new digital multi-effects processor pedal. It can be used directly into a PA system, a sound card, an amplifier. It has cab, amps, effects, all kinds of stuff, which I'll showcase in just a moment. You're about to hear this in the context of a jam track, using a few of the presets that I've just tweaked slightly, and then we'll build our own sounds. I'll run you through the software and talk about everything you need to know about this, because it's fully loaded. Before we get into this video, a huge thank you to Sonicake for sponsoring this video. If you want to check this out, I'll link it down below. Here we go. Let me give you a quick overview of this, starting with the inputs and outputs on the back. So over here, we've got our power on and off switch, which is always a great addition. Our included power supply plugs in over here. We get a USB-C port to hook it up to the computer, which is awesome. MIDI in and out. There's no connectors available in the box, so I'm unable to test that. We get a headphone out and an auxiliary in. So if you want to run a 3.5mm audio signal in, you can do that, and then you can listen with headphones over here. Included on the back, we get two XLR outputs, so we get a left and right output, and we also get a line out left and right as well. These are those TRS connectors, so that's great. So depending on your interface, it's got you covered. Now this can be used as an audio interface, so if you are, say, using a Mac like me, you can plug this in with the USB port over here, and then it will function as an audio interface. So you don't even need to use these with a computer if you're in that scenario also. On this side of the unit, we have an effects loop built in, which will definitely appeal to a lot of folks. And we get our second expression pedal input. So if you want to run this with a second expression pedal, not just this one, but a second external one, you can do that. And our guitar input is on this side. By default, this expression pedal on the front here functions as a volume pedal. So in most scenarios, just with the presets, if you're using this just straight out of the box, this controls the volume. So if it's up, you're not going to have any volume. If it's all the way down with it flat like this, this is where you'll get full volume or anywhere in between. Now, if you want to assign this to be a wah pedal, you can do that also. All right, let's talk about the screen on this. So this is a touchscreen LCD panel, which is fantastic, but it's not huge. So I find the easiest initial setup is done on the computer using the Matribox II Pro software, and I'll of course show you that throughout this video as well. But this is a really functional unit because once you've got it set up, then you can sort of just do smaller adjustments using the LCD screen or the tangible potentiometers on the front here. These three controls allow you to essentially change things on the fly that appear on screen. And again, all of this will make more sense a little bit later on. Built into the Matribox 2, we get 63 amplifiers with over 93 effects. There's also 61 cabinet simulations with support for over 20 user IRs. Now, IRs are impulse responses, and you can load in your own to this unit if you want to do that as well. So if you've already got some Celestion IRs or whatever it is you want to load into it, you can assign up to 20 internally. Built into this unit, we get 100 different drum rhythms and a metronome. So if you want to practice to a metronome, you can, or you can dial in a funk rhythm, a rock groove, or whatever using the built-in drum machine. There's also a 90-second looper, and I'll showcase a little bit of that later on in the video. The tuner is nice and easy to use. All you have to do is push down on these two buttons and the tuner will light up on screen. It also mutes your signal, which is awesome as well. And it's very easy to see at any viewing angle. Taking this straight out of the box, you'll get 120 different presets and up to 240 preset slots that you can store. And you can also, of course, remove the presets built into this and just store your own. So you can go through on the computer and just clear them out if you don't want them, but it's a good starting point, especially if you're new to using multi-effects processor pedals. This weighs in at 2.5 kilograms, and I have no complaints with the build quality. It's a nice metal enclosure here, and here's the back if you're wondering what it looks like. If you're going to be using this digitally straight to the computer via that USB-C port, then we get 44.1 kilohertz sample rate with a bit depth of either 16-bit or 24-bit. I think that's user assignable in the menu system, but yeah, there's plenty to cover with this, so let's get into it. Let's go through a few of the presets, but what I'm not going to do is go through all of them. The magic of these things comes down to building your own sounds, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment because the new interface is really quite great. So this is the Heavy Metal 2 preset, and if you want to turn up the output volume of each patch, you can use this control here. So, or of course you can use the software. Let's give this a shot on bridge pickup. Now, while that says metal, I think it's a pretty great sort of rock tone. All right, this next one's called Modern Lead. Have a listen to this. This is a great lead solo tone, and I've just sort of reshaped the EQ slightly. That's pretty cool. Let us know what you think. This next one's called Cream OD. I'm going to start with the delay off and then I'll turn it on. Here we go. That's great. It's got a really nice tone to it. If you're a fan of the 80s, there's one called 80s Lead, which is a really huge sound. This is bridge. And the sustains there as well, which is great. The last of the higher gain tones I'm going to show you is this one. It's called Fusion J. Now, I'm not a Fusion player by any stretch of the imagination, but the tone of this is actually quite great. It's got a nice delay on there and everything. Have a listen. I always think the point of these presets is to give you a good starting tone. If you like any of these, you can fully customize them, and I'll show you that coming right up, but let's try some clean tones. Let's try this first clean preset here. Now, as you can see, it usually has this vibrato on because it's called vibrato warm, but I'm gonna actually leave that off just to show you some clean tones here with this Bogner amplifier. It's got a really pleasant sound. I mean, that sounds full and round. It's a pretty impressive clean. And over to one called Chorus Clean, and this by default doesn't have any reverb, but I've added some just because the reverb always sounds a little bit nicer. Here we go. And again, you can fully customize this, turn on and off effects, it's up to you. All right, let's take a look at this software, and I'm gonna start with an empty preset. So there's nothing on 33A right now. It's completely empty, and this is how it sounds. So I'm gonna make that sound a whole lot better. Now, this line denotes our signal chain. I'm gonna add an amp to begin with. So we'll double click on amp, and it brings up a Tweed Deluxe, but I wanna use a twin because the twin sounds great on this. So let's start with that. We also want to add a cab. So we've got the twin reverb 2x12 cab, which is great. So this should already start to sound better. There's one thing missing. Can you guess what it is? A little bit of reverb. Reverb's always good. Let's try the studio reverb. Not bad. But I'm going to try the spring reverb. I'm a big fan of spring reverb. I'm going to add more decay here. Let's bring the tone down, and we'll try the mix there. Reverb's probably just a little bit wet. All right, let's leave it like that. So as you can see now, we've got our amp, we've got our cab, and we've got some spring reverb, but there's all of these other things that you can drop into the signal chain right now. So we're going to use this DYN, which is dynamics, and there's also a few different options in here. So if we bring this all the way to the left, it's before the amplifier. So this is where I want the compressor. You can experiment around and find out what works best for you. But as you can see from the dynamics option over here, we've got 3 different compressors, all these different boosts, and some gates as well, which is a noise gate. So if you're playing with a lot of drive, I'll show you that in just a moment, you can basically eliminate the buzz or the hiss from the effect, which is pretty cool. So let's have a listen to this. I think that sounds pretty great. I'd love to know your thoughts on that, and that's how simple it is to get a really great sound. Now these amplifiers have all different kinds of controls depending on the amp. So as you can see, it is a Fender Twin, but we can add more gain. Let's have a listen to this. So now it's sort of getting into that sort of credence kind of territory. So it's up to you what kind of clean tone you want. We've got a jazz chorus here, which is an iconic clean tone, solid state amplifier with a really great sound. Let's give this a go. All right, so this one definitely isn't loud enough, right? So There's a couple of ways you can kind of turn this up. I like to use this option at the top here. It's interesting that this one doesn't actually have volume control, because the twin we were just on does have a volume control. So yeah, it is what it is. Some of these will have different effects and options like any amplifier. So yeah, strange that they don't have a volume control on that one, but you do have a master output here at the top. So you can kind of experiment around with that as well. There's Voxes, there's all kinds of different stuff. We'll try this, this boogie clean tone. I always find boogie's a little bit too clinical, but let's have a listen. Actually sounds pretty great. And again, that's with the compressor on. If we turn it off, anything with CL after it here is clean. So you've got plenty of different options to choose from. Let's maybe try one more while I've got it dialed in. That's a Supro. We'll go down to, let's try this. This is a matchless. So we'll see what this one sounds like. And with the compressor on, I think that might be the one. All right, so if you want to save this, there's a save option over here, and you can call it whatever you want. So we're going to call this ITB clean, or CL if you just want to keep it short. It's up to you. And then you're good to go. Now the great thing about this particular unit, if you take a look at the software, I can right click on ITB clean, we can copy it and we can paste it into the one below it. And if I do this, everything will be exactly the same in the signal chain, except now I can remove the compressor and bring in maybe an overdrive pedal. So this will be exactly the same settings as before, but now I get to choose the kind of overdrive I want, and there's plenty to choose from. I mean, the Tube Screamer is pretty iconic. Let's have a listen to this. I mean, that sounds pretty great. I know the reverb's probably a little bit on the clangy side here. We'll turn the tone down a little bit and the mix, but this should sound pretty great. Let's crank the drive up. I mean, there you go, that's the sound. And of course, you've got all these different ones here. One of my favorite ones is the full tone OCD. There's all kinds of different overdrives here. There's a Timmy, we've got some fuzz pedals as well. Let's try this red fuzz. So that's cool. There's plenty of different distortions as well. We've got the Proco Rat. All right, that sounds really gnarly. Still sounds really gnarly. So let's move on. We'll go to the Plexi distortion. And of course, you can fully tweak these if you want more low end in that. You can bring it up, more mids, maybe a little bit less treble. Let's build up a lead tone as well using the same process here. So we'll add an amp, we'll add a cab, and we're going to go down and pick our starting sound for the amp. But I'm going to add some reverb as well to begin with. So let's do that. We'll just use a plate this time because plate reverb is epic. You can't go too far wrong with a bit of plate reverb. And we'll make that sound like that. Okay, so we've got a small cab, which will change in just a moment. We're going to go down to maybe a Friedman. Let's give this a shot. Oh, this is based on a Plexi, but I think it's supposed to be a Friedman if I had to guess. Let's have a listen. That already sounds great. So let's turn up the volume a little bit here. I'm going to crank this up. Add a little bit more treble. All right, that already sounds great, but let's go ahead and add in a delay. Now, the cool thing is you can put the delay before or after the reverb. I'm gonna put it before, and you can pick from all of these different ones here. Yeah, that's a digital, that one. That sounds pretty cool. Let's bring the feedback down to about 4 repeats. Yeah, about here. I mean, there you go. That was really quick and easy to get a great sound. So you can fully customize this as well. It might just be a little bit too much bass in there. I'll just bring the mids up a little bit, maybe a little bit more presence. And that's great, right? So let's have a look at what else we can add. So we can add a different type of boost, which was under the dynamics option before where we had the compressor. But now we're going to add the AC booster. Now you can hear, maybe, if you can hear it on this microphone from my speakers here, there's quite a lot of white noise. So what we can do, we can add a second dynamics, add this before everything, and turn this one into a gate. And now there's no noise. So this with my guitar on, it's still just getting through a hair. If I bring this up, it's completely silent. Now, if you're wondering whether or not you can layer up different effects more than once, you can, but there's a 3 limit to some of these, and I'll show you that right now, starting with a different amp. So let's add a different amp into the signal chain, double click, and it will put it at the end, and you don't want to leave it at the end because it's going to sound like it doesn't have a cab because it's not before a cab. So bring that to anywhere before a cab, and you can see it's TWD. I'm going to bring this back to the Fender Twin. So that's 2 amps. If you want to bring down the Fender Twin, you can literally just bring it down on the volume control. Now just remember, whatever order you have these in will be how the volume output is structured. So as you can see, the volume on this one is lower. If I bring it before the Flyman, it's now going to be louder. So you've got that option. You can experiment around with that if you want, but you can, of course, add more than one delay, reverb modulation, all that kind of stuff. So let's add a modulation to this. I'm going to bring this after the amp. Actually, we'll bring it right in here. So after the cab, this will be kind of like, my thinking is kind of like the effects loop, you know. Let's bring in a flanger. Now, if you want to change this to something else, you can. Let's put another delay in there for a moment. This is set to warm, but what we'll do, we'll change this to maybe a multi-tap delay, but we'll turn the mix down so it's not as prominent as the other one. So that's a huge sound. If you want to change the boost, you can. Let's try the BB boost. So yeah, just spend some time and get to know each of these effects, but you can get a more than capable distortion tone just by using a number of these great amplifiers, or just by cranking the gain up like this. Right, if you want to add in some EQ, you can do that as well. I'm going to put this after the amplifier, or you can put it before, it's up to you. I'm just going to throw it in right here. Sometimes it doesn't go where I anticipate the effect will go. I sort of always have to just move it again. But anyway, let's have a look at this EQ here. If you're just getting into playing electric guitar and you don't know what all the different amps do, what all the effects do, and all that kind of stuff, or what they are, you can just simply pick a preset from the left over here, and you don't have to worry too much about it. You can just modify one that you like. So this plexi lead one arguably sounds better than the custom one I just made. Let's have a listen. It's a great starting platform, right? So then I can go in here, maybe just change up the delay to something more suitable for me. I mean, there you go, right? That's most of the work done for you already. If you want to change the reverb here, you can do so. It might make it a studio one, which would be a smaller room. That sounds great. So I can just simply click save on this one, and I'm done. You can call it whatever you like, so you can find it. And it's that easy to find a sound that you like and just make subtle adjustments. And if you don't want delay, reverb, all that kind of thing, you can just simply turn all of these off or remove them completely using the delete option. Now, by default, this pedal's set up in preset mode. If you take a look at the top panel, it says preset mode under footswitch. But the great news is we can change this as well. So we can make it work like a stomp box. Now, if we change this from preset to stomp mode, as I click A, B, C, or D here, you're going to see things turn on and off, and these are the effects. It won't turn off the amp or the cab sim, which is great. So it's turning on and off the reverb, the delay, the tube screamer, and the compressor. And the great thing is these lights are color coded to what's going on screen over here, so it makes it very intuitive. We also get a fully fledged drum machine built into this as well. So there's plenty of different rock, blues, funk, jazz, pop, electronic world, or a basic metronome feel here with different time signatures. Now, metronomes are great if you want to just work on your timing, but playing the drums is a lot more inspiring. So let's take a quick listen to a few of these. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can change the drum volume using this slider, or the BPM, which is the beats per minute, or the speed, by using this slider here. Now, as you can probably hear there, minus my sloppy timing, the drums were actually getting a bit buried under my guitar, so I can turn the volume up. Let's try this. There's plenty of different ones to choose from. You can change the speed, the volume, and pick from any number of different types of feels or styles. So there should be something in here to suit most players. Now if we take a look on screen over here, we've got a box with 3 lines through it. Now this is kind of like our global setting. So we've got a global EQ, which is separate from everything else. So if we want to bring down the high end, for example, we can use this high cut here. We can bring this up. You can just pull these sliders up and down and change the EQ. And you have to turn it on here as well. So just keep that in mind. If you make adjustments here and you don't turn it on, you won't actually hear anything. So yeah, this is great if you're going into a speaker system that might be brighter than one you're used to plugging into at home, or if it's not bright enough, you can separate the output EQ from everything else that's built into the unit, which is really handy. If we go back into that same menu and go to global settings here, you can see that we've got different input modes here as well. You can turn the cab on and off, which is pretty wild. The USB audio gives us our record level. So if you want to record louder to the computer, you can turn this up. The monitor level is how loud it'll be playing back if you're using this as an interface. So if you're using this with headphones or out to another speaker, you can control the volume using this monitor level. There is also a master output volume on the top here as well, but in USB audio mode, especially if you want to get the mix right from what you're playing in real time to what's being played back, then you can slide this around and change the volume. Now, as I showed you before, the function mode is set to stomp mode still, but we can change it back to preset mode here as well if you want to do that. There's also some MIDI options down below. Now, I don't use MIDI. I don't know much about it. I kind of like to keep this kind of stuff as simple as I can. So if you like to work with MIDI, there's plenty of different options here, and you'll probably know more about it than me. Let's take a look at the Sonicake Matribox up close and how it operates. So as you can see, we've got A selected right now, which is we're on bank 21A. As I hit B, it's going to go to 21B, C, and D. Now, for example, if we want to switch it to footswitch mode, we can simply hold these two down for a moment. It will then switch into quick footswitch mode. Now, the drive option is red, and it's denoted by this. So if I tap on that, it's going to turn it off, or if I tap on this, it's going to turn it on. Same if I use the footswitch. So now I'm turning on and off the drive signal. If I look at B, it's the modulation here. It's going to turn that on and off, which is great. This will be the next delay, which is unreal. And D is the reverb effect. So this allows you to use it like a conventional stomp box on the floor going into an amplifier if you prefer to use it that way. That's kind of how I like to use these units, but you know, everybody likes to use things in a different way. So if you prefer to use it in the standard mode, just going through the presets, tap both of those and you're back to where you were. Now, being that it's a touchscreen, I can also cycle through them like this, and you can see it move on the actual buttons down there. Everything's color-coded and lit, and if you do one thing on the software or on screen, it's going to replicate it on the actual lights behind the buttons here. Now let's take a look at this 21B Fusion J patch, and I just want to show you these 3 controls. So these pots control anything that's on screen at that particular time. So we can change the threshold of the noise gate here. We can turn up the gain or turn up or down the preset volume for that particular patch. It's that simple. Or of course, you can just simply tap on one of these and use the menu control. It's also a wheel, which is really handy. Let me show you how to make a change in the signal chain here. So say, for example, we want to change the amplifier. We can tap on the amplifier and it turns off, right? So you're like, what happened? You got to hold it down. So if you hold it down, it brings us into this menu. Now this wheel, this main menu wheel here, allows us to get into the different options. So if we get into amplifier, we push down on this, it becomes a button, and then we can cycle over to here. Just remember, I'm upside down doing this, so it's a little bit tricky. I'll try my best. And then you can go ahead and click on whatever you want to change here and change it to a different amplifier. And once you have the one that you want, and you've listened to it and all that kind of stuff, you can hit the menu button again, and then you can get exit out like this. You can go exit, and it will take you back to here, and the amp is now changed. If you want to save this, you can do that via this unit as well, just by using this key right here, and you can call it whatever you want using this touch keyboard that you can see on screen. We also get a really great tuner built in, so you can hold these two down and it will bring up a tuner. To get out of the tuner, all you have to do is push any button and it will take you out, which is great. There's also a built-in looper over here as well, and I'll test this out right now. All right, let's wrap this up. I'm going to give you my thoughts so far on the Sonicake Matribox II Pro. It's a hard name to say, Matribox. I'm trying to get around it. Anyway, this particular unit functions as an audio interface. You can use it into your existing sound card via those XLR outs or into a PA system. And it's full of plenty of great tones. Now, the presets on this, some of which don't do the unit any favors. I really think once you start building your own sound, this is where it really shines. That's why I want to showcase in this video. While some of the presets are definitely a great starting point, you can absolutely make your clean tone sound better than the ones they've already got stored in here. So don't judge it just based on the presets. The actual magic of this comes from sort of developing your own sound and setting it up in a way that works for you. Now, I love the fact you can also turn the effects on and off individually in the chain, or of course you can run it in sort of bank and preset mode. So it's up to you which way you want to run it. Having two XLR outs as well as two of the TRS jacks out on the back is awesome. So I have no complaints with its input and outputs. I didn't showcase the MIDI functionality because it's something that I don't have connectors for, and it's not something that I use, but there might be other videos already out showcasing that. Now, when it comes down to building your own tones, the process is pretty easy and you can get good results with minimal effort. But if you're unfamiliar with the amount of amps and cabs and all that kind of stuff that are out there and also that are built into here, that's where you might get confused. But the presets are good enough to get you started, and then you can customize them to make them work for you. The only problem I really had with this was the looper. The looper's not very intuitive. It took me probably 30 minutes to get the section that you saw. I wasn't sure if it was recording or in playback mode. The icons on screen aren't too intuitive, so I'd love to see a big record icon come up anytime I'm actually recording visually so I can see it when I'm just sitting here playing. So that's maybe my only complaint with the overall functionality of this unit. The looper is a little bit hard to use, and I was unable to kind of go back to my other sounds, switch sounds, and then go back to my looper. So every time I tried that, it would completely change the sound that was recorded. So yeah, just a small thing to note there. The looper functionality is definitely something that I think a lot of people will use this for, but consider it, at least in my opinion, while you can use it with the drums, a pretty simple looper interface in terms of what it can do, but a little bit challenging to actually get it to do it, if that makes sense. So overall, this is cool, man. It's great to see Sonicake continually putting out better pedals than the ones that came before them. So yeah, well done to Sonicake for bringing this out. If you want to check it out, I'll link it down below. Let us know what you think, and I will catch you on the next one. Catch you soon. See ya.